We made it.
We did it.
Yeah.
We appeared on your TV screen from far away, and it's your computer. Welcome to this live webinar with me. I'm here, and Chris Castiglione, and this is here, Erin Zobitz.
Hi.
Yeah.
My
first webinar.
Yeah. How's it feel?
This is cool.
Yeah.
I'm really cool.
I have
no idea how much people are there.
Yeah.
They're out there.
They're out there. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We have a fun agenda tonight. We are live from New York City on this jQuery webinar, where we're going to attack all things jQuery and 1 month. Here's the schedule for tonight. So the first thing we're going to do is introduce you to our latest and greatest teacher, Erin Zobitz. Yeah? That's how you last name?
Zobitz.
I always say Zobitz.
You got it.
Yeah, I never checked in. We didn't have to have one of those awkward talks like 3 months into our relationship. Yeah, Castiglione, is that right? Good. And show you inside the latest course. We're going to show you guys a few things that we've been learning, projects we're making, best ways to learn jQuery, and some ideas around that of what we came up with making this course. Some of the key ideas between a lot of these questions that have been coming in already here at 1 month have been what's the difference between jQuery and JavaScript, which one should I learn first? So we're going to dive into that. Are you ready for that?
I'm so ready.
What's coming up?
It's a big question.
Big question. Some Q&A and then one more surprise all the way from New York City to your home. Where you're in your pajamas chilling. You will get surprised. It will be a nice surprise. I hope you're excited. Okay, so that's what's coming up. Welcome! You're welcome slide.
Oh,
See that coming up?
I love it.
I do your face in a circle.
I love it. Looking a little strange, but hey, let's sip it all in.
Life's good.
Yeah.
This is what the team
jQuery is so exciting.
My hair.
It is exciting.
It's not weird.
All right, cool. Great. So I'm going to start off with just some questions. We'll do some just like on the couch kind of late night style questions.
Cool.
That would help me get to know where you're coming from with learning jQuery and teaching it in 1 month and get everybody to know you a little bit better.
Love
As
it.
well as learn some jQuery along the way. So how did you learn to code?
Well, I think I'll share a little bit about, I guess
my journey into the tech world too. But I was working previously when I got out of college on a graphic design team. I was working in a production role there, and I did that for about 2.5 years. Kind of just not knowing what was out there. I was like, okay, this is a good job. I should stick around. And then started to question, do I actually like doing this? Is this what I want? Am I happy? All those questions I think that start to hit me as your first real job. So I took time off. I went and traveled. And I was traveling for about 6 months in South America.
And then I returned back to San Francisco. I grew up in the Bay Area, so I feel like there's no way you can't notice the influence of tech in San Francisco. And I've always kind of had a curiosity about it, so I started getting more involved in the tech world there. So I volunteered at TechCrunch.
So how long ago was that?
That was in 2012.
And I should have said up front, where are you working right now? You're at Barnes & Noble, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm at Barnes & Noble Education.
How did you go from here, where you are now, to there?
Yeah, this is what we're filling in. But so then I started learning to code at that point. I had come back from this trip, and I was unemployed. I was really questioning what I wanted my next move to be, and trying to evaluate what skills did I have and what could I see myself doing day to day and feeling excited about. So I kind of just started tinkering around a little bit, but I ended up meeting a wonderful guy. His name was Julian. I started asking him a lot of these intimidating, like, technical questions. When I would run into some problems learning to code, I felt like I had this person that we developed a mentor-protege relationship.
Yeah.
And so I had actually started learning Ruby on Rails. So that was kind of my foray into technology. And yeah, I credit him a lot. It's so helpful when you have those moments where you feel stuck or discouraged and life gets crazy and you could just easily kind of drop off and not continue learning. I mean, it is time consuming to learn how to program.
So he became your mentor, and then did he meet with you like once a week? Like how did you go about like getting in a sync of a schedule of learning?
Yeah, we actually met twice weekly, and that was much easier when I was unemployed. I ended up going on and working in a marketing role for this furniture company, but I was still on my off time. We were meeting still twice a week. We were kind of just jamming on projects, and we were just
like you were making actual projects.
Yeah, he was working on his, and I was working on mine, and we would kind of jam together and work.
Is jamming an official term for coding?
Jamming is like a totally official term in the programming community. I swear.
Okay.
No, and so we would work on these projects, and when I would hit roadblocks or run into something I didn't understand, to be able to turn to somebody and say, "Whoa, can we walk through this?" was huge. So. Basically, I built up a portfolio of a bunch of projects, and then I finally felt confident enough to say, one, I mean, I realized in that time that this is something I do feel really excited about and could see myself doing full time, but also felt confident enough that I could actually go out to a team, join a technical team,
what gave you the
able to make
confidence?
contributions.
Like, what gave you that confidence?
I think having a portfolio to fall back on. I
always think that's really important as well. Like when I'm doing hiring for web developers, it's like, what have you made? And in addition, it's like, I want to see examples and then like a bullet list of how you contributed as well. Because it's one thing to just put a screenshot.
Totally.
So it's cool that like you took it upon yourself to make these projects, and like that's a great story.
And I think side projects, even when you meet people as professional developers, I think their side projects are much more reflective of their passions and the things that they're interested in, because
totally.
programming, like anything, could just become a job. It could just be something that you go in, you go home. But I think when you're really passionate about it and you want to stay up to date with it and you want to apply it to things that you care about, that's when it really sinks in of like, oh, this could be a career. And if I wasn't working professionally as a programmer, I would still be doing it on the side. So that's how I feel about it.
That's pretty dope. What did you learn first, jQuery or JavaScript? Or you said Rails you're doing.
Before I learned Ruby, but before I got into like the behemoth beast that is Rails, I was working with, I learned jQuery first. And it was just so rewarding to start with jQuery. You just start making, I'd been doing a lot of HTML and CSS and, there's that kind of just wall that you'll hit with that. I mean, now CSS is much more advanced than it was when I was learning it. The CSS3 has had tremendous contributions, but to create that life and that dynamic nature of a website, the ones that I would see and admire and want to build with animations and things, I was like, that's when jQuery just kind of like made me light up. I was like, this is awesome. So
awesome. When people are learning, which I imagine a lot of people watching this right now are learning and thinking like, where should I start? How did you start? Like, I think you're an inspiration for us because you took it upon yourself and you made these projects, and like, how do they get started? So maybe the question is like, are there a few things like maybe prerequisites or things that they can do to get ready to learn, or does it matter to have like a background in something before you come to jQuery or JavaScript?
Totally. I feel like if you're kind of just getting started out in the world of programming and the world of the web, the basics I think that you would need to know are HTML, have a good understanding of CSS or have worked with CSS. And in that as well, I think getting familiar with the dev tools. jQuery is JavaScript.
So dev tools, which is like in Chrome or in Firefox, you can open, or in all the browsers, you can open up this toolbox. It's free, and I'm clarifying what that is.
Totally. No, let's clarify. I mean, JavaScript runs in the browser. So any browser that you are on, even watching this thing,
do you have a browser
you can right click and I prefer Chrome.
Okay.
But
me too.
I
don't know anyone that wouldn't say Chrome, but I'm just wondering.
Firefox is pretty freaking awesome.
It's pretty good.
But anyways, you can right click, go down to inspect element, and that's going to open up DevTools. So I feel like
do it right now. You'll
totally,
see it.
you should do it right now.
That's a good trick. Just right click anywhere.
Especially if you've never done that, that kind of opens up, all of these clues into this fancy web page you may be looking at. It's the skeleton, all the bare bones of it are right there where you can access and touch them. Yeah, you can touch them. And then now when I'm programming and I see a site, I'm like, I gotta go look at their HTML. I gotta go inspect this right now. I'm like, are they using React? What are they using? So
under the hood.
Yeah, so it's cool. You have access to that. So getting comfortable in that realm, those are some real prereqs, I would say. if you're coming from the vantage point of knowing another programming language already, I think that will help in understanding some of the concepts we'll introduce in this. So yeah, I mean, if you're coming from that vantage point, you probably know those 3 things mentioned, but I think that will only aid in you understanding the content of this course further.
So the 3 things are DevTools, CSS,
HTML.
And HTML, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Which are all in my course here at 1 month, HTML. Zing.
Plug. Shameless plug.
No, it's cool. I mean, that's where creating that course came from for me. It was just like, I feel like people were trying to get and make these web apps and start businesses. And I was just like, there's just some fundamentals that you can learn in 20 hours. You know, I think it's actually only 5 hours of video, but like about 20 hours of work. And it's like, if you have these fundamentals, you can then go do jQuery. You can then go do Rails. And it's not that you need to do it. Like, it's not a necessary thing, but it will really, really help you. I mean, I would suggest that you
Totally
do it. So
absolutely. Yeah. I would too.
Sweet. Let's move on. Let's go inside the course a little bit.
Let's do it.
Inside.
Let's do it. Is this my cue?
Yeah. What you got for us? You're gonna show me the course. I got a sneak peek at this, right? All right. So what's going on?
Okay, cool. So, I mean, the purpose of this course really is to kind of introduce you to jQuery, getting comfortable with its breadth of functionality, and being able to take your pages that you've built in HTML and CSS to this new level, make them more dynamic, and then, you know, addition to that, we get introduced to some programmatic concepts as well. So your learning should not stop here, but this is one of the best ways to start seeing progress and getting excited and empowered to continue working and continue learning this stuff. Because for me, just as I was describing when I started learning jQuery, it just kind of opened up this whole other world to me about what was possible. Building HTML and CSS for me, and maybe I'm not speaking for everybody, but that, I don't know, I would lose interest sometimes of just its limitations. Now it is much more advanced, like I was saying, than when I was initially learning, but jQuery does present this whole other world to dive into with your pages. So with that said, just talking a little bit more about the course. Are these, can I do this?
Right?
Oh, yeah, learn to build an interactive website.
Did you say that?
I think I must have said that. And then you guys pulled it out and quoted it.
Awesome.
With one quote.
We were like,
cool.
Why do we need to do this? And you're like, because you will learn to, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the overall.
What do you mean by interactive? What is that? That's an example of interactive.
A website that basically does something when a user interacts with it. So it's listening for users' interaction. And then you can make new things happen when a user is scrolling or clicks on something.
So like when I clicked something happened, like movement or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to be able to make it interactive with the user. So that's basically the point of this course, is to kind of introduce that, like really learning to listen for these user interactions and apply them. And we'll get into some heavier concepts too, like Ajax and local storage and some, edging towards more of like full stack programming. But overall, you will take this course and know how to build an interactive website confidently, being able to listen for different events that are happening that are triggered by someone using your site.
Cool.
So
awesome.
Projects. So it's 4 projects, and each project is about an hour or so of material, and then the idea is a project a week or so, but you could plow ahead on them too. And so the first project, oh, look at my weird face in the corner. The first project is a basic photo album kind of app. And we don't have the interaction because this isn't all set up yet. But basically, when you click on the photo, it's going to create a lightbox effect, which enlarges the photo full screen and kind of puts an overlay over the background. And then you can click through your photo album. So this is fairly small, but lightbox is something I guarantee you've seen before on the web. And the purpose of this project more so is to get comfortable getting started with jQuery. So it's getting that library included in our project, checking to make sure it's loaded properly. We're also working with Lightbox API. And so we are actually not writing a line of JavaScript in this app, but we're actually doing some fairly complex behavior, and it's really kind of to open you to how powerful these APIs are and what you can actually do without having to write a single line of JavaScript. But In order to use something like jQuery, you have to be able to feel comfortable navigating documentation. It's a really easy tool to get up and running, but you want to be thorough in reading the documentation to know what you can actually accomplish with it. And as you go on and continue to program, I mean, jQuery is just a tool in your arsenal. And so you really want to understand its capabilities. So we're going to work a lot in this project to kind of dive into that documentation and walk through step by step, because it can be intimidating when you're just looking at a document with words you've never heard on before and code snippets. And the immediate thing you want to do is just copy and paste it over. And, you know, we'll work, some of that is like we will be pulling code, but it's going to be always walking through the steps that you need to customize it and make it work for your project. Cool. Project 2. This is just an FAQ page. So we are basically going to, these are drop down accordion menus. So an answer is going to be revealed sliding down from this. And it's basically getting into one of the reasons people love jQuery so much. It's the effects and the animations. And so in this project, we explore, I think 4 or 5 different animations. So we work and do this in several different ways. But it's, you know, our real deep dive, first time into the documentation, as well as getting comfortable doing animations. We can make them faster, we can make them slower, we can customize them entirely. So yeah, this project will work to explore a lot of that. And that's really one of the most revered reasons for jQuery, is having simplified animations. Project 3 here is a basic to-do list app. So pretty straightforward. You're adding the to-do list item there. But one of the great features of this project is the fact that the to-do list item actually persists. So we're able to save that to-do list item using HTML5's local storage. And so that is a feature of HTML5, but we will work to access it using JavaScript and jQuery. And it's cool because most things in the browser, if we're just, you know, manipulating the DOM in the browser, you will learn about the DOM if you take this course. We're not diving into it right now, but when you refresh the page, everything would go away. But in this case, we're actually saving that data. So when you refresh the page, all your items would be there in the same state that you left them. So this is kind of inching towards this kind of world of full stack where we're actually working with the local storage database to set values there. So I think it's awesome.
So a to-do list, you can add things, you can delete things, you can save things.
I mean, it couldn't be more
Sounds
straightforward.
great.
It's actually awesome. And we're
it.
dealing with some complex things in there. So.
Sounds rad. And this is the last one, right? Looks like what is this one?
So this is a basic kind of like apartment marketplace app.
Nice.
So yeah,
like
and
Airbnb with no text and photos. Kind of like another site that does that.
It's simple. It's simple. Yeah, another site that we won't mention. Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
But basically, you know, it looks pretty simple from this vantage point, but all of this data here that you see for the apartments is actually being rendered from a server. So we're using Ajax. That is something that jQuery has simplified as well. And so that's actually, once again, you know, with local storage and with that, I think we're starting to bridge the gap of like, we're moving beyond just the scope of animations and manipulating the DOM. We're actually saying, real life, this is what you do when you have information on a server that you need to retrieve and render for your page. So we kind of inch forward to this world of like full stack, every project that we go in. And so, yeah, this app it's pretty simple. These are filters on the left-hand side here. So you can filter by borough, and then clicking on any of these listings will actually open up that apartment listing in Google Maps. So yeah, that's a pretty basic overview of everything. And I tried to point out just some of the highlights from each project and, you know, the takeaways that you would get from each one.
Awesome. All right. So let's dive into a question. We have a question.
Do you have the interactive stuff on your desktop?
I don't, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we won't take them into there. I just wanted
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay.
Maybe we should. I deterred.
It's all good.
I know. I'm
all
sorry.
good.
I didn't think you had enough time.
It's all good. So let's jump into the question. So JavaScript versus jQuery. Let's start with just what's, from the beginner's perspective, what's the difference?
I
Like,
think
what do I need to
if
know?
you were
I've
just-
never done this before.
yeah, if you were just looking at JavaScript and jQuery and you'd never seen these two things before, you would just say, it takes, like, that one involves so much less code, and it's so much easier to read and understand what's happening when you're looking at lines of jQuery versus JavaScript. So jQuery is a JavaScript library. So you're writing JavaScript when you're writing jQuery, but basically it built this library with tools that are available to us to simplify writing JavaScript. So reading jQuery is just, it's much more straightforward and clear as to what's happening. And like I said, it's a tool. JavaScript is much more verbose and you can accomplish a lot more, but it's a steeper learning curve. And when we're kind of in the world of all the projects that I've done, those are infinitely simpler to do and accomplish what you want to do in jQuery. So yeah, I think straight off the bat, when you're looking at it, you're just seeing less code and it's easier to understand what's happening.
You're saying jQuery is less code?
jQuery is less code.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's, but you know, it can't, it's a sliver. It covers a sliver of JavaScript.
What are some good use cases? Like, when would I use jQuery? What are some examples?
Well, I mean, I don't want to default to my projects as examples.
Well, those are good examples. So like things like a to-do list, things like filtering, the things you just showed me, things like a photo gallery.
If you need to, I mean, there's other front-end frameworks that make things simpler, but as well. But you know, even in the last project where we're rendering data from the server, and it's just a basic interaction with it. We don't. You might need something more complex if there's a lot that you need to do. But if it's just render information that a user can click on, that's a great use case. We've simplified that versus implementing a more robust front-end framework. And yeah, those. If you just have a static HTML or CSS page, but you're like, I want to make some things a little bit more interesting on it, like like a portfolio site or something, but you're like, oh, I want the, say you want the image to fit the size of the screen until the user starts scrolling and then it shrinks, or all of these things that you basically just kind of really want to elevate a static page. That's one of the first use cases, making it more dynamic and interesting. And then, yeah, I would say if you're rendering basic data from a server, and then also animations. I think doing anything with animations, jQuery is infinitely simpler to use to create more, like a scroll bar or some type of animation. I think
animation is what I'm hearing. Is when you think of jQuery, you think of animation.
I think it simplifies it a lot. And yeah, so if you want an animation on your page, and maybe something more complex is happening.
So what's an example of not animation? Like, what would that be? Because I know what that is. What's not? Like, what's the opposite of that? What's jQuery good for then? JavaScript.
Oh, what's JavaScript good for? Yeah. I mean, JavaScript's tremendous. I mean, everything you can accomplish in jQuery.
Some questions.
Oh, yeah, more questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just be from the.
Okay, I'll get to those in 1 second.
Awesome. Cool.
What were we saying about JavaScript?
I mean, everything you can accomplish in jQuery, you can accomplish in JavaScript.
Yeah.
But I think if you're building a more robust, large scale application, which if you're just learning, that's, a couple steps ahead at the moment. But there's so much that you can actually accomplish in JavaScript, and all these animations and everything I'm talking about, you can absolutely do in JavaScript too. It's just, it's much more code. It's a steeper learning curve.
JavaScript, much more code.
Yeah, so I think getting started and to be able to stay motivated and seeing things actually happen, jQuery is the best way to get going, but understanding JavaScript will allow you to understand jQuery more in depth and as to why things are happening and to be able to really grasp best practices and why they exist. JavaScript will aid in your understanding in that, but yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of great use cases for JavaScript, but I think when mostly for jQuery, I guess it depends on the simplicity of the site. And then also maybe my company, for instance, we use jQuery for, we use it, we sprinkle it throughout the app. For parts where we feel like it would be more appropriate and simpler parts, mostly with animations and things. So it's not our tool to combat everything, but it's just kind of something in our arsenal that we know is going to be simpler, and it's cross-browser as well. So
cool.
We're doing small scale apps here, but if you want to ever, have an app be online, you want it to be accessible in every browser. jQuery's basically made that cross-browser kind of communication even simpler. So
awesome. All right, I got a few questions for people writing in.
Sure.
I love this. All right, this comes from Katie in, I don't know where, but Katie in the world. Are you any good at JavaScript?
Are any of you good at JavaScript?
Oh yeah, I want to read it as, I'm just gonna like try to do my best impersonation, which I believe is like, I mean, are any of you good at JavaScript? It's literally the bane of my existence. I think there's a lot of emotion in this question.
Oh my God.
And she's basically asking, I think, if I could infer from, so myself as well, I know how to code in JavaScript and jQuery, and I've taught it as well in person a bunch. And so I've seen this kind of question come up because I think when you're first starting to learn, it feels like there's infinity. Like it never seems to kind of like codify into beautiful projects. So,
Totally.
I feel it.
I can sympathize with you, Katie, so much. I learned Ruby first, and so Ruby is elegant and it's clean and it's readable and there's no semicolons and there's no curly braces, and so I think going into JavaScript felt finicky. It felt like one tiny minute thing would make everything blow up. And but yes, I mean, to answer your question, I think it's a different learning curve, and I'm not sure of your perspective, but it's a tremendously powerful language, and it can accomplish so much. And now it's just continuing to evolve, and actually with Node becoming a backend language. So it's really the language of the web. So with that, even if it's the bane of your existence, that actually might be a good reason to even stick with it further. It's not going anywhere. It's only becoming more robust and useful. But in that way, I think jQuery might be a great place to start, because JavaScript it's verbose. There's a lot to learn, but you're learning general programmatic concepts you can apply to any language. But if you want to work in the world of the web, it's a tremendously useful language to know. So, but I sympathize with that, because I felt like it was so frustrating compared to the world that I came from. But yeah. Okay.
So it's hard, but you eventually get there, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's a learning curve, but I think once you get the concepts down, I mean, now I'm like writing semicolons myself.
How long did it take till you felt confident?
Oh
my coding JavaScript?
God. I honestly would say a year, and I think that time comes with really, I once again, not knowing your background, but Rails or Ruby, that it runs in Rails, convention is very strong. There's one way to really implement things, and JavaScript is much more malleable. There's a lot of different ways to work with JavaScript. There's a lot of different design patterns, and those are things that, to me, I guess, just started to like open my brain up a little bit, and it actually made me get more excited about JavaScript versus when I was doing Ruby on Rails. But I mean, that's purely my perspective, but I felt like the convention was so strong. There's very clear-cut ways to do things in the Ruby on Rails community, and then working with JavaScript, there's clearly best practices as well, but I felt like I really had to evaluate a problem and apply a solution or design pattern that fit that particular problem. So it made me feel like eventually, in that time of learning and reading, in this past year of working as a JavaScript developer, feeling more like a real programmer, I guess. I don't know. I feel like it's expanded a lot of things for me, but yeah.
Cool. All right, great. Will you cover CoffeeScript in the jQuery course? And what are your feelings on CoffeeScript?
We will not cover CoffeeScript in the jQuery course, but
do you use CoffeeScript in your job?
No, we don't use CoffeeScript.
So what is CoffeeScript for people listening, and how is that different than...
And I take that back. We write our tests in CoffeeScript. But CoffeeScript is simplified JavaScript. So it's really just a shorthand. Syntactically, it doesn't use all those elements I was just mentioning, like semicolons and curly braces. They've just removed from the equation. It's very clean. It's very readable. I was very drawn to CoffeeScript as a Ruby developer. There's a lot of similarities in it to me. But at the same time, it's just shorthand JavaScript. And we don't even need to get into details, but I think it kind of can present some complications. Now, we use CoffeeScript in some instances of writing tests because they're just quicker to write. It's just shorter. Once again, it's less verbose than JavaScript. A lot of people have tried to make JavaScript simpler to write. Katie, they all feel your pain. But seriously, I think I think still you want to get a better understanding. Once again, having a better understanding of JavaScript, I'm now better at using CoffeeScript. So I think still as the core of it, you want to eventually go down that path of learning JavaScript, but CoffeeScript's another great tool, especially like I'm saying, we're
But for
writing
beginners,
tests.
no CoffeeScript right now. Sounds like what you're saying. Like,
Yeah,
you
I
don't need
mean,
to do it.
to each their own. I think it has its benefits, and you will
Okay.
still learn some of these concepts. But for me, I think you're still dancing around. You eventually have to learn JavaScript. So.
Okay, cool. Should we do one more at least? Sarah, how are we doing on time? One more?
You have plenty of time to answer questions.
Okay.
You've got
Okay.
lots of them.
Okay,
So-
excellent.
How complicated is it to take JavaScript and then learn Rails?
How complicated will it be to apply the knowledge from this course to a Rails app? Is that what you're reading?
Yeah. I'll read.
Okay. That's a different question, I feel like. But yeah, no, for sure. I think, I mean, we're not obviously, I guess, if you're in the world of a Rails app right now, we're not going to be talking exactly about, where do you put this JS file in your Rails application and things like that. But I think it can apply directly. I mean, you have HTML and CSS files in a Rails application. Any JavaScript that you're, any jQuery and this JavaScript file that we're writing, you would be able to, port over to that application and include directly. So I think it's highly applicable. It's just, as far as where you are in the world of Rails and understanding how all those parts work together, but you have HTML files and CSS files. If you're writing jQuery that targets those elements in your HTML, then yeah, you're going to be able to apply this directly to Rails application. So.
Sounds great. Let's see. How about Parallax with jQuery?
I was looking at that question and
I'm
trying
not
to
sure.
understand.
I'm not sure what the question really is there. I mean,
Yeah.
Can you do Parallax? The Parallax is when the background stays. GitHub does it, and the front moves, and it looks like you're.
Oh, that's Parallax. Yeah, I mean that's like everywhere right now.
Yeah.
I think that's just done with CSS.
I think that's a CSS
That's
thing.
just. I don't think you need any
Yeah.
jQuery
It's not
to
on
do
the
that.
course.
It's a more
Yeah.
advanced. It's a more advanced CSS, but yeah, no,
Try
that's
just Google Parallax with Parallax CSS tricks. That website's pretty great. I'm pretty
CSS
sure
tricks is
Chris
awesome.
Coyer has a tutorial on how to do
yeah.
it.
So that is not something. I mean, once again, I've alluded to the fact of how awesome CSS3 is. It has built in a lot of cool kind of animation features, and you can get really advanced with transitions and shapes, and there's a lot you can accomplish with it now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think maybe some of those things you would kind of look to a tool like JavaScript or jQuery for. CSS is getting more advanced as well. Like every framework and language out there is just amping up. They're all becoming more refined and more customized and used on the web. But there was some statistic like 60% of today's most visited websites use jQuery, and I think it's because I mean there's still such a strong use case for it. It's not going anywhere, but I definitely think there's parts of CSS3 and other frameworks and native alternatives that are making the things that you used to need jQuery for even simpler, and you don't need a tool like jQuery. But
one of the questions about what you're talking about is like loading jQuery in. Does loading jQuery into your website, like by using jQuery, are you using a lot more bandwidth than say JavaScript is the question? Yeah.
So, I mean, you're definitely, I feel like, especially this course, we're targeting a lot of people who are just learning. And I think, as we talked about jQuery versus JavaScript, this is absolutely a great place to start. And like your experience too can echo that. But ultimately, yes, you're adding an additional library to your project where JavaScript is already being run in the browser. So you're adding all this additional code.
So this may be where you and me have like a little bit of like, because I feel like it's not that much, isn't it? 35 kilobytes. It's pretty small, right?
I mean, there are performance issues.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. It's not modular. So I couldn't say, hey, I'm only using this particular thing related to animations in jQuery. I can't just load that part to my project and use that. I have to load the entire library. And like what I'm saying with my company, we use it selectively at different parts. So, but I think that is really the future of jQuery. And I think that's a lot of frameworks are going towards this more modular approach. So if you're like, hey, my site, mostly is going to be done in JavaScript, but these few parts really rely on jQuery? Could we just pull what we need from this library as opposed to having to load the entire
So
library?
what you're saying is like one of the things that you think is unfortunate is that if you just wanted to use a little bit of jQuery, you have to download the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you can't just like use like a little bit. Whereas with JavaScript, you can kind of use a little bit and you could be a little more judicious, I guess, about.
Totally.
That's
And
a
I
fair
think,
point.
I mean, it's an open source library. So that's
Yep.
great because there's so much kind of due diligence done in the community about making sure jQuery is actually, it's up to date and bug free and all these things. But, you know, within that, a lot of things get added to it that you're not going to take advantage of. And like we're saying, with these other tools becoming, you know, better and better and being able to accomplish more and more, the need to include the entire jQuery library when you're weighing, maybe if you're using other frameworks and stuff too, you really would want to weigh. But I think we're, you know, a couple steps ahead, I guess, in this realm, because I think we're kind of talking about, wow, where do I begin learning, you know, how to build a basic interactive website? And so, but I think those are definitely valid things. And I think as you go forth, you know, and you operate more, then you start to weigh those risks of performance and optimization. But for learning, I think it's such a tremendous place to start, and it's such a tremendous tool overall. I mean, so many sites utilize it, but once again, you have to understand when and where you want to selectively use it.
So you're like, just don't sweat it. It's all good.
Yeah.
You're like, you're overthinking this whole thing.
Yeah, chill.
Just chill,
you
man.
know? We're
Just-
gonna
just
write some
do it.
jQuery.
Every site on the web uses jQuery almost. Just do what everyone's doing. I get that vibe. I like this question a lot, and I want to weigh in on it too, because I feel like I have some opinions. But
Podcast question?
yeah, what are your favorite podcasts on coding? There's a bunch. Do you have any faves?
Yeah. So I love. Well, there's JavaScript Jabber. I love JavaScript Jabber. So yeah, when I like have to get pumped on my way to work in the morning. And
When you're running, you put some JavaScript Jabber
definitely,
on.
it's like not doing it for me on the run. I'm just like,
You're like, what?
storage, and you gotta
Semicolon?
cache that.
Yeah.
Oh my god. But no, I think
Okay.
JavaScript Jabber is an awesome one. Shop Talk, who you just mentioned.
That's my fave.
Yeah, Shop Talk's
I really like
yeah,
that.
it's so good. They actually had the guys from Shop Talk on JavaScript Jabber. Or it was like the other way around. But anyways, it was like big collective, amazing thing that happened. So
yeah, we're on
yeah.
Shop Talk sometimes.
Are you?
We are a
You guys
proud
advertise
sponsor
them. Oh yeah,
of
that's
Shop
what-
Talk
I
because
was-
we are fans.
I know. I was proud to be
Yeah.
involved. I heard that was like 1 month. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
Do you have any other faves?
Ah, man, other ones. I used to really like the 5x5. The what's his name? Dan. Somebody in the audience is gonna know. But the 5x5, they do a bunch of different web and digital kind of related sites. Like the kind of losing my thoughts here now. But check that out, 5x5.com.
And I have one more. Too.
Yeah.
I realized. And it's actually friend Saran, who's a member of Women Who Code, which
Oh, yeah.
I'm a part of.
Oh.
It's called Code Newbies. And so she's had some totally awesome people. And so, yeah, Code Newbies, she basically interviews developers and people in the community to talk about them. And it's kind of build that collective consciousness, and especially hearing from experts when you're just getting started about their struggles and them getting started and their day-to-day still when they feel like, what am I doing? Like, I'm a total fraud. This guy had written all these books, was like, I'm a total fraud. I don't even have my PhD in computer science. And you're just like, hearing their stories, you're like, oh my God.
Did you ever feel like a fraud?
Oh my God.
Coding?
Just like,
I'll say, all right, yeah, I felt like the first 5 years when I was coding, I felt like I didn't know this thing.
yeah, I think it's
Because there's so much new stuff coming out all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just remember at the time being like, oh man, like Rails came out, and all of a sudden, like, you know, in 1 week, my friend Justin's like, great at Rails. And then you're like, I don't even know what that is. You know, I'm over here doing what I think at the time I was making WordPress sites. And you just feel like an idiot, you know? And I think it just took me kind of long enough to get the confidence of building enough sites. Like you said, I think to me, it really comes back to the portfolio. I don't know if that's just my like psychological
learning by doing
evaluation of like, of like identity and being like, I know I've done these things. Like, I know I learned by doing it and I can show for it. And to have enough. I mean, honestly, I think I made 100 websites before I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm pretty good with this.
Totally.
Like, literally maybe 100. Yeah. And so I really just empathize.
well, and actually the question being typed is super relevant.
What's that?
How long did it take you to
Oh,
not feel
that
like
is
a newbie
good.
or a fraud?
Yeah.
I have my good days and I have my bad days. No, but I think, I think for the most part, there was some point that really clicked into me or at some point where I just started to feel like, okay, not intimidated by a problem or a task that was going to be assigned to me at work or something, my own project that I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know that's where I got to go. And I don't know. It's hard to kind of quantify. It's this evolving process, but I guess for me, it really felt like, 2 years, but then I still feel like that, you say 5, and I really felt like, I think 2 until I feel like I started to really have my grounding and really have my feet, just like knew who I was and wanted to be in this industry and in this community going forward. And it's hard. I mean, so many people in tech, it's why it feels very kind of hard to find your way into, or maybe it can be called elitist and things sometimes, because you're oftentimes talking to people who tell you, there's this way to do something, or they have the right answer. And you're like, well, I don't know. So it's hard to have sometimes a conversation when someone's telling you that this is the way to do things, or, oh my God, how did you do it that way? And it's like, you start to learn that everyone's going to tell you that. And everyone has their own experience that they're coming from. And there are agreed upon best practices and definitely things that you want to apply. And, but yeah, it also feels so personal in that way. But I think 2 years till I really felt confident of like, if I'm thrown something, I will find a way, I will find a solution, and I will find a way to solve that problem. It might not be elegant all the time. It might not be the best, but you have to just kind of trudge your way through that. But yeah, so that was a kind of, 2 years, but even still sometimes, I don't know.
Take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah. A few more questions. So Erin, what was the first programming language you learned? I think you answered that. You said Rails.
Yeah, Ruby.
Yeah, Ruby.
Yeah.
Cool.
Rails is not a programming language, just to clarify.
That's technically accurate.
I just, as we're like steering past people, I don't want. Well, I think when I kind of look back at my experience, just like what I was saying, I was learning Ruby and then learning Rails feel like 2 maybe different tasks to me. And I think people can easily, when I was talking about transitioning from Rails to JavaScript, feeling like I was a real Rails developer. I really knew how to do things a Rails way. And this is not for everybody. This was just my personal experience. I think having learned that first, I learned very strong conventions. But then going into JavaScript and saying I felt much more like a programmer. Like I could solve these problems, or these design patterns apply to many languages. I just felt like I had more breadth and things to offer. And so,
that makes sense.
But that I think just goes from Rails is where I started. So that's all I knew. And when I broke out of that, it just felt like my world opened up a bit. But, some people could probably have a completely inverse experience. But for me, and just also clarify, it's a framework and it's the language.
I know. I think this is just where I think I think the thing that's interesting about programming and why it's so confusing to start learning sometimes is because when you look at the experts, like the people that know this, they have such heated, strong opinions and they disagree a lot, right?
Really?
So I think it's actually interesting to witness that. So if I'm being contrary to you in this, it's because of a place of like, I think people learning should see how there are, how there's not just one way to do things. That's kind of where I'm coming from. And I think it's cool that like I call it a language and you call it a framework. And yeah, technically you are right. I mean, it's definitely a framework. At the same time, I think I'll give the analogy that we were talking about before this with the microwave.
I like the microwave analogy.
Learning a framework, learning jQuery is like learning to cook in the microwave.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you put it in, you heat it up, you could do some really quick things. It looks pretty good, right?
Yeah, easy bake oven.
And then
I had one of those.
And then you were like, easy bake oven, right?
Yeah, but you can't cook your Thanksgiving dinner in an easy bake oven.
Right? So you're gonna want to learn some cooking skills. Yeah,
when you have a bigger problem to solve, maybe jQuery is not going to be the tool for you, but to get started and to understand the basics and to really you get some introductions to concepts, and then you also feel like, wow, you need that motivation to say, I got my website looking so awesome. It does all these cool things. Like I'm pumped to keep going. Like I want to keep learning because I know what it's like to also hit that wall and just feel like discouraged. And you're kind of, especially like when I was learning Ruby and stuff, you can be deep in like the back end side of it, and that really works for some people. And for me, I'm more visual, so jQuery was such visual reward.
Cool.
We're getting a red message.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up. The red alarm went off, and it is time to move forward from QA to the bonus.
I think we actually still have some QA time, but we're
Oh,
also
but we're
going to
gonna-
announce the big
We're gonna
surprise.
announce
but then,
the big surprise.
Yeah.
Which is that starting now, we are offering the course right now, your jQuery course.
Yeah.
And not only that, but we're going to give a bonus to anyone that signs up in the next 15 minutes. As you can see, this little counter going down. The bonus will be that Erin will be holding some private webinars coming up to discuss with students of the course how your progress is going and any questions that you guys have. There'll be small groups of up to 25. So if there's more groups, we'll put more dates. It'll be the 14th and the 15th for these.
Yeah.
So sign up now and you'll have another session with Erin. There's a sign up button.
There's a big old button.
A big old yellow button to go sign up for.
Cool. Yeah. So that'll be awesome. And it'll be nice to have some more. Well, it'll be like a face-to-face webinar. Like we'll all be in a Google chat.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's cool. I think it'll be so nice to have that interaction and see how these projects are out in the wild with people and to see how their success rates are and how they're understanding these concepts. And all of these, you're getting introduced to some big concepts and you'll feel comfortable with the documentation. So they all have a lot of room too to kind of just take it to the limits. It's a nice feeling where you're just like, oh, well, that was cool. I finished that. What else can you do? Like there's so much. And now you just read all the documentation. So pretty cool.
It's a true story.
There was one question that I liked and I wanted to have you ask me it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What questions do you like?
I like the bottom question.
So
From Q.
would you like me to ask you this question?
I was just
All right.
trying to be subtle.
Pretend you don't know the question. I'll
I've
ask you.
never
Ready?
seen it.
Is it better to work at a company with these newfound skills or go freelance?
Okay, I like this question because I think there's something very compelling for a lot of people about learning programming and the freedom that it can potentially present, which is, a lot of people will have hopes of starting their own companies, and programming is something, especially if it's going to be web-based, is going to be a huge asset, and you want to kind of understand when you're talking to developers and things. But if you're really looking to transition careers and you want to actually that's what you're working to develop this new skill set for, I will say freelance is very compelling. I think there's so much value in that. I've done it on the side throughout all of my programming career, but occasionally when projects have sparked my interest. But I think really if you're looking to transition, to solidify those skills and to have some really solid ground to stand on, embarking on a company or looking for a role within a company, I think can add a lot of value. That does not go, I'm sure, for every company, but you have the choice of the market out there right now, and chances are you will find something that's somewhat interesting to you if your skill set's solid enough. And I just think there's a lot of value in that, especially if you're kind of new, to be able to have that kind of communication and that kind of feedback, and contributing to a project with a team, a project that's way bigger than you're capable of building on your own. So I think there's a lot of value in that. For me, I've always valued the teams that I've been a part of and the people that I've gotten to have conversations with and whiteboard problems, and they've aided in my deeper understanding. But I think freelance is something to continue to build on the side and to always, like that portfolio, what we're talking about, always have, to be actively involved in freelance projects that hopefully suit your interests, but also just to broaden your skill set. Maybe something you do on a freelance project is never something that your company would demand or would fit within that web platform. So I think freelance is another great way to expose you to tools. I think, really starting with a company can add a lot of value. And even if you're if you're going to go freelance, I guess being in the community in some way or part of some type of organization that can help give you that. But yeah, I like that question because I think I felt the same way. I felt empowered and I was like, I should just go build websites and have, freelance kind of company or online. There's a lot of freelancing things, but I've gotten so much value out of being around other really intelligent people, and having those kind of conversations is only aided in my understanding. So, but with that said, I'm in the community in a lot of other ways as well. It's not just, my office is one community, my team is one community, but then in New York, we have a lot of wonderful technical meetups and resources here too. So depending on where you are, I'm sure there's ways to get involved in the community. And then there's also digital communities like 1 month too. So
We're a digital community
your digital community.
with real people.
I'm having a webinar.
Zing.
We're all gonna be there.
I know, it's just funny. It sounded like and what is the is it a meetup that you are? Is it Women Code? Is that
Yeah.
is that a group? Is it a club? Is it you have to know a handshake? You have to get a personal invite? How does that work? Yeah.
No.
Could they come if they're in New York?
Yeah.
Am I blowing your cover on this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you are a woman and you are interested in, you are a developer, you're interested in developing, you want to talk about code in any capacity. I'm with a nonprofit organization. I'm a director for the New York chapter called Women Who Code. So this organization got started in San Francisco, and just quick origin story. A girl named Sasha, a friend of mine, she was the only woman developer at her office. And, you know, I think she was feeling sometimes just a little bit isolated. She valued her team and the conversations and the people, but, you know, sometimes just a little outcast. And so she threw up something on meetup.com that just said, you know, women who code, like, wanted to attract other women developers, and she had no clue how it was going to go. And within 4 days, 100 people signed up. And so it kind of started out as women who were already working as developers kind of coming and having this community and this support and being able to collaborate on projects and, you know, talk about their interests in this just kind of different community than their office. And it's kind of grown now into an organization that's really just overall dedicated to helping women excel and just pursue careers in technology and trying to help combat this disparity. And so anyways, if you're in New York, I'm at all of the events practically here, and there's chapters all around the world. I think there's 55 chapters now in over 12 or 13 countries. So you should definitely see if there's one nearby you and get involved if that suits you.
Great.
Yeah,
Cool. Women in Code.
I know.
Sweet.
I invite you, but you can't come.
I've been to one already. When you were saying that, I'm like, how did I get to one if I'm not a woman? And
You
or is there
worked at
something
the
we
event.
don't know?
Yeah, okay. It was just
How did that
the
happen?
back door. That was no, it was a fluke. But hey, that's how I got to meet you.
That is how we met.
That is.
That's how I meet people at the Women in Code events. That's all I'm gonna
See, that's our biggest fear.
I know. Hey, what's up?
Nope.
I know jQuery. Can we meet?
Oh my god. Not going to nerdy programming pickup lines.
Do you have some?
I don't really know any, but I feel like they have to exist. And I would love if someone just like live tweeted or chatted one of these right now.
Can you see how big my heart is? Visible equals true. CSS joke, sort of.
I can't.
I'm gonna stop right now.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
I tried to stop you earlier.
I'm gonna remind you guys that we are doing the exciting countdown, like it's the New Year's Eve countdown, and then at the end of this, what happens is you go home.
No, 6 minutes.
And party and learn all night is really a frenzy of learning to be had after this. Also, if you're a current student, let me know that letting you know that there's a link for you as well, where you can also be part of this. So we welcome you. You know, we call our students OMIs. I don't even know if they do that, but around the office.
Stuff, OMIs?
Yeah, it's like OM is like 1
I like
month.
it.
E's.
I
OMIs.
like it.
If you're remote, you're a remote-me. How do you say it? Remotey. We have different terminology for people in the office. So
Cool.
So if you're an OMI,
Little did I know.
little did you know.
I'm an OMI.
You are an
I've
OMI.
taken some courses.
Okay. I think that's about all the questions. Should we just kind of chill it from there? Or
Yeah.
did you want to ask some more questions, Sam?
Nick had one question about
Yeah.
basics versus intermediate. Did you guys catch that already?
No, that's
Yeah, I
a
saw
good
that.
one.
I'll ask that one, yeah. So Nick was asking about the basic menus. It was a little long, that's why I just didn't read it. But I think in short, the idea is like in the course, how advanced is it? Is it just some basic stuff? Like I'm gonna try to guess what Nick's saying. I would guess that what he's asking is like, is it stuff that you could probably just read documentation on the jQuery site? you know, because I know there's a lot of stuff there, like basic menus, basic animations, drop downs. Like, is it just that, or does it go, like, how much deeper does it go, or does he need an intermediate course? Like, where would you kind of frame the level of this course?
Totally. I think so, Nick. I think getting started, there's you know, a good amount of the course devoted to really like laying a strong foundation, beginning to work with third-party libraries, and to be able to, you know, start navigating that documentation and applying it. There's obviously new concepts for people who have never touched jQuery or worked running code in the browser, and all of a sudden you're going to be dealing with the DOM. But I think there are some more advanced jQuery concepts. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this scope, which applies in JavaScript as well as local storage and Ajax. So I think, you know, Ajax and maybe some scoping things can be more complex and harder concepts for people to understand. There are definitely resources out there on those, but, you know, I think watching or, you know, working through a project and being able to do that can really help aid in solidifying your understanding of that. But I do think a good amount of the course is really devoted to kind of building that foundation, which you sound like you may have. So yeah, with that said, I think there'd be still things you'd find interesting, but finding something more intermediate might just kind of grab you off the bat. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe there's some way we elevate this in the future, but I also, or, you know, do a part 2 or something. But I also think, you know, even starting to learn JavaScript, I think that will only aid further in your understanding of jQuery. And that's definitely
Awesome.
a steep learning curve, but I think that could be a good route to go too. But I definitely think there'll be things you find interesting, but also we really work to lay a solid foundation. So if you feel like you've got that,
Yeah.
maybe some of the projects would not be for you.
Yep.
So that's my thought. What do you think? You know the projects.
Yeah, I would say it goes deeper than learning on the site. I think that there's a lot
Of
of
course.
context that you bring to it when you're making a project. There's a lot of critical thinking because I think it's easy to just copy code from a site or a tutorial.
Of course.
But I like the way that you phrase the projects because it's more of like, cool, now we're going to build this thing. You know, how do we do it? And it's like a deconstruction. So I often think that learning a programming language, a lot of the best, like the best takeaway, the best like juice that you can like get from it is the process, you know? And so it's a little more than just looking at documentation. It's
I would
a little,
agree.
you know,
Yeah.
and I think you bring a lot of that to like, this is why you're doing it, you know, and this is how your process is, which is going to be different from everybody's process. You know, we
It is true.
all
I mean,
have our own
I'm
ways of doing things. So.
yeah, I'm definitely sharing that. And I think there's, you know, points in my career, and as I'm still continuing to learn and grow and develop myself, I feel like, you know, sometimes having information reiterated to you too, it doesn't really get old. It only helps things sink in further. And yeah, I may explain something in a way that you hadn't heard explained before, or you hadn't, you know, you hadn't considered it before. So
Yep.
I think in that way it's helpful. But yeah.
Cool. I dig that. I got another question here. This is like, I'm going to ask it because I've been here before and it's a little in depth. If you don't know Rails, we'll try to not spend too much time on this, but,
Sure.
but Graham here is wondering, he's using jQuery with his Rails app. So that's an interesting learning. And maybe someone who doesn't know is like, you use them together, right? And he's saying that in development, meaning like on his computer, everything looks fine. They're both working fine. But when he puts it to production, when he puts it on, I'm guessing Heroku or on the website, internet somewhere,
Yeah.
when he takes it and he loads it up, the jQuery stops working. Any quick tips on what that could be?
I mean, it's somehow an issue with it being compiled. Like it's
That's what I would
not
say.
obviously being deployed with the jQuery code. So it's not, if it's running in development, then you know it works. So something about that deployment process or some task as to how, I don't know if you're using Heroku or something.
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, Heroku is really great and they simplified it so tremendously, but it still can be really challenging to just get things deployed. So potentially it's obviously how I think that's not being compiled and you don't have access to your jQuery library there. So I would kind of Google some errors around your
By
jQuery.
compiling, does it just have to type bundle, basically, do you think? that
No, I mean, I'm imagining everything's already bundled. I mean, if he has access to other gems that he's using, that would be, you know, if your other gems are working, maybe the bundle work, but somehow with your concatenated JavaScript, it's all being concatenated. So it's not actually, it's all being compiled. So yeah, that might be one of the problems. I would imagine it is. So good luck.
Don't know.
I've been there. I mean, I've been there with like deployment problems too, and I'm like, but it works on my machine.
Right.
And then I'm
right.
like, what?
Right.
Yeah. So definitely
Or maybe
challenging. But
Google a little bit about the asset pipeline. Is that still something? I'm not sure. Maybe this is a little bit above our heads.
yeah, I don't know.
You don't do Rails day to day now, do you?
No, not day to day. Actually,
Cool.
I haven't touched
Neither
it. I
do
gotta
I.
get back to it, but I haven't
It's
touched
been
it. in a while,
about
so.
yeah, about a year for me as well. Cool. So we are done with time, which means we are going to wrap this up. I want to once again thank Erin for coming by and chatting with us today about jQuery, JavaScript, Thanksgiving dinner, everything under the sun that came up. It was really fun.
Yeah.
I want to thank, there was a handful of people helping record this and helping us put this together.
Thanks, guys.
We got
All of
Sarah,
you.
we got Doug, we got Zach.
Making it all happen.
Making it all happen here at 1 month. We're here live from 1 month in New York City in NoHo. And we hope to have more of these live events in the future. If you dug it, if you liked it, you can let us know on Twitter at 1monthedu. I'm at Castig, Castig, and Erin is
At Erin Zobitz, my full name.
Yeah.
You can find it probably everywhere on the 1 month site right now.
So you can let us know.
Yeah.
What did you like? What should we do these more often? What would you change? What would you do more of? Let us know. And
Yeah.
we're here to help you guys learn and start an awesome business.
Yeah, and just last minute thanks. Thanks for tuning in because it's you guys are the reason that I want to do this. I am looking to, I think, help get more people interested in this and dispel some of the misconceptions around coding and how challenging it is. And so I want to see people excel and build projects and create things and kind of let that soar. So I think, just being here, thanks for tuning in. I am so humbled by all of it. And yeah, I do hope to see you at the webinar.
And so when you make something, tweet it to us. Let me answer that because we'd love to see what you make.
Yeah, totally.
That's why we're doing this. All right.
All right.
Adios.
Thanks.
Bye. Sayonara.
You good enough?
Peace out. Adios again.
Yeah.